All right, cue the beat. Let's jump in. So this is going to be part 2 for my playoff predictions and the 2021 NBA season predictions for the standings over in the Western Conference. So I already made a video for the Eastern Conference. Go check that out. Let's kick it up as of right here. And number 15 for the West, I do have no other than the Oklahoma City Thunder. This is not a bad thing that they're number 15. They are quote-unquote trusting the process. Sam Presti out here pretty much has around 17 to 18 first-round picks for the next 6 to 7 seasons. Right now, he is just quote-unquote tanking, relieving salary cap, letting go Steven Adams, Chris Paul, some of these other players, letting all those contracts go, building up first-round picks to where he can take a season or two to quote-unquote rebuild and tank and pretty much find some gems in the draft, let alone he can be able to make a big-time trade. So number 15, the Thunder are quote-unquote rebuilding. I think they'll probably be around 15, if anything like that in that range. They're not making the playoffs for sure. Number 14, the Sacramento Kings. I have no idea what the Sacramento Kings are doing. Vlade Divac has no idea ever since it's been like 7-8 years. I do like their young core with De'Aaron Fox. I think he's a special kid in the league. Now with De'Aaron Fox, he does have a 5-year extension that he just recently signed, so he's going to be their quote-unquote franchise player, box office type player. He's electric, he's fun to watch, and he's going to be stuck there in Sacramento. Basically, surrounding within the team, Harrison Barnes type players out there. Bojan Bogdanovic just left in free agency over to Atlanta. Sacramento didn't even match that contract when it came to him. Harrison Barnes is probably going to get traded away. Some of these younger players as well. The Kings just make no sense. Luke Walton, he's pretty nice, but you're in the West. The West is stacked as it is. They need to blow it up again and just have to find hidden gems to pair with De'Aaron Fox or something along those lines. If anything, for Sacramento, the only plans you need to do is just move over to the Seattle Supersonics. That should be your majority goal, if anything. But the Kings, nothing. At number 13, I'm going to have to put the San Antonio Spurs. It's going to be 2 seasons in a row where Greg Popovich and the crew have not made the playoffs. This team makes zero sense. They should have blown it up this season. I thought this offseason they would have blown up LaMarcus Aldridge, Greg Popovich, Patty Mills, DeMar DeRozan, some of these veteran-type players. They just need to rebuild their team. I thought Popovich was going to retire. I thought DeMar DeRozan would have opted out and joined another team in free agency. And I thought they would have traded away LaMarcus Aldridge, but I don't know why they're keeping the same team. It really makes zero sense. They're not going to make the playoffs. There's no momentum, let alone they're going to be like zombies out there for DeMar and LaMarcus. There's no ambition for them with the Spurs. So very easy take along that side to put them at number 13. At 12, I'm going to be able to put the Minnesota Timberwolves. The Wolves have a pretty nice young core. I mean, you drafted Anthony Edwards as your number 1 pick. You do have D'Angelo Russell with Karl Anthony Towns. I've always stated they needed to blow it up with D'Lo and Cat and just rebuild with Anthony Edwards and whatever gems they can find in the draft for the next following seasons. I don't like the timeline of things. I feel like this is a forced project. I don't see any really success at all whatsoever. Again, the West is so stacked. If this were the Eastern Conference, that's fine, but in the Western Conference, it makes no sense. Pretty much the era is over for Karl Anthony Towns. They need to ship him off. All right, at number 11, I'm going to have to go with the Memphis Grizzlies. I'm shocked and surprised they really didn't make any substantial moves to pair Ja Morant with a scoring wing, let alone some young players or anything along those lines. Ja Morant, he's going to have an excellent sophomore season, but when it comes to the Memphis Grizzlies, there's too many teams in the Western Conference that are coming up, and they can't catch them because they did nothing in the offseason. They do have the talent to fight to get in a play-in tournament at the very end, but I just don't see it for the Memphis Grizzlies, man. I don't. All right, at number 10. Now, when it comes 1 through 10, this is very weird because a lot of people's lists are going to, it's going to be different. It's going to vary a lot. You can have some people probably have, if you're like number 10 on the list, they could be number 6. Number 5 could be number 2. Number 3 could be number 9. It's going to fluctuate. So I'm kind of calling it closing right here. So for a number 10, don't be shocked. I'm putting the Golden State Warriors. With Klay Thompson out for the whole season, the Warriors do have enough to make the playoffs, but I just seen Steph Curry play without Klay Thompson whenever he had D'Angelo Russell, and it looked terrible from the jump. He does have Andrew Wiggins and Kelly Oubre. You do have James Wiseman that you did draft on the team. I just don't expect too much within that team to where they'll make the playoffs. You do have other contenders out there that are going to push it out there, but for the Golden State Warriors, I think they may have another injury of Steph Curry. He's not durable as he is, and the team just doesn't fit well together if there's no Klay. That was the whole foundation of the Warriors, so I think they'll probably lose. I think they'll be close to making the playoffs, but there'll probably be a couple hiccups here or there, and it won't go through. At number 9, I'm putting the Utah Jazz. A lot of people had the Jazz around a 5th through a 7th seed. Some people put them as a 3rd seed. That's not the case. They did not have a good offseason. The only name they brought in was Derek Favors. Again, they did not help out Donovan Mitchell in the offseason or with any trades. Joe Ingles, Royce O'Neal, they're not going to cut it for you. Rudy Gobert is not a scorer. He's a defensive player. I would not be shocked, and this is not a fact or anything, but I would not be shocked if Donovan Mitchell probably got hurt this season and then they just missed the playoffs. Something along those lines. Something always happens in the NBA where there's a team or two that doesn't make it due to injury. That's not any facts I'm throwing out there. I'm just kind of food for thought. But with Donovan Mitchell, he's an all-star type player. I don't see enough ammunition for the Utah Jazz. Now, they have been slipping throughout the seasons. They've usually been a 5th seed, a 4th seed, a 6th seed. And I just think now with some other teams I'm going to mention here coming up, I think they'll probably barely squeak it to where they're not going to make it. All right, number 8, we're heading into the playoff seedings in the Western Conference. I do have the New Orleans Pelicans. You're going to have a healthy Zion Williamson, knock on wood. You're going to have Brandon Ingram, who's an all-star, who's going to rejuvenate his game once again, being confident. You have Alonzo Ball. He's growing potential as well. Same thing with Josh Hart, Jackson Hayes. Now, a lot of people don't like this. I actually liked how they brought in Steven Adams. I know it's not the best fit with him and Zion, but with Steven Adams as your defensive anchor on the team, they have a traditional starting 5. They're going to make the playoffs. They're going to either squeak it in or be along those ways. But I got the New Orleans Pelicans at number 8. They're going to be a fun team to watch nonetheless. At number 7, and this one could vary for me, but I'm just going to leave them where they're at, the Portland Trailblazers. This is probably Damian Lillard's best team he's going to be playing with in his career. You do have Enes Kanter back on the team. Carmelo Anthony is back on the team. You brought in Derrick Jones Jr. You still have CJ McCollum on your team. You brought in Robert Covington. They got bigs on the team. They got a bench. They are around 10 deep. Now, I could see a scenario to where the Blazers are a 3rd through a 7th seed. But the Western Conference now is so stacked. These teams are pretty much neck and neck, so it can vary. At number 6, I'm going to put the Phoenix Suns. Now, the Phoenix Suns, of course, they brought in Chris Paul. You did bring in some background veteran-type players like Jay Crowder on the team, Etuan Moore. Veteran-type players who can mentor, let alone play defense, and fit in very well as role players within the team. I do like their starting 5. I like the direction. I like Monty Williams as their head coach. Devin Booker, DeAndre Ayton are going to have excellent seasons playing alongside Chris Paul. I expect the best for the Phoenix Suns. At number 5, I'm going to have to go with the Dallas Mavericks. Now, the Mavericks finished 7th seeded last season. They made some more roster moves. They brought in Josh Richardson, brought in 2 to 3 young cats within the draft. With the Dallas Mavericks, Luka Doncic is probably going to be the most valuable player in the regular season, if not that top 3. You're going to have Kristaps Porzingis out for the first couple of games. So Luka out there is going to be getting buckets, stats. But within the Dallas Mavericks, I expect for them to be around a 5th seed. It can be a very competitive first-round series. But the Dallas Mavericks, they can probably make it to the 2nd round. I think that's their peak for this season. At number 4, I do have the Denver Nuggets. So the Denver Nuggets, I wasn't too crazy about their offseason. You were able to bring in RJ Hampton, but you were able to lose Jeremy Grant, Torrey Craig, Mason Plumlee, and around 1 or 2 other somewhat role players out there, which is kind of a problem. I mean, you made it to the conference finals. I would have expected them to retain Jeremy Grant. Now, losing him will It's a loss. And at your 4, you still have Paul Millsap, but he's around 35 years of age. He's getting a little older, a little bit slower. Denver, I think they took a tad bit of a step backwards. At number 3, this may shock a lot of people. I do have the Houston Rockets. Listen, you got James Harden on his foundational. If you have James Harden on a team with PJ Tucker, Eric Gordon, Daniel House, and another role player out there as your starting 5, James Harden can take your team to a top 4, top 5 seed in the Western Conference. Last season, they were a 4th seed in the Western Conference with Russell Westbrook and the crew. Now, Russ does not fit James Harden's game. So you did bring alongside John Wall, Christian Wood, and Boogie Cousins. These are complementary pieces. Christian Wood fits perfectly in the James Harden system. Boogie Cousins, he'll probably be coming off the bench, which will be a perfect role player, 6-man. And you do have John Wall as your starting point guard. Now, I see a lot of times to where they'll probably have a starting lineup of John Wall, James Harden, Eric Gordon, PJ Tucker, and Christian Wood. That team is more fluid and plays more of the James Harden system. Then coming off the bench in the second unit, you could still have Boogie Cousins, Daniel House, and the crew. You can still throw John Wall playing with the second unit from time to time. Not that he's not starting, but you can intermingle him into there. And James Harden, pretty much, I don't expect him to get traded. There's not going to be a lot in the market where Philly would want to pull the trigger, Miami or these other teams. So I expect a rejuvenated, a PO'd, a mad James Harden who's going to go out there and get buckets. His trade value is going to go up, and then they'll probably trade him after the season. With the Houston Rockets, if you have James Harden in the right mindset, that is a great team to put around him. They'll be a top 3 seed if he gets his mind right, does his thing. At number 2, the LA Clippers. LA Clippers had an okay offseason. Now, you did bring in Serge Ibaka, which was huge for the team. I mean, huge for a culture setter, let alone playing a stretch 5 and a big for your team and franchise. Within that, you do need a floor general. They can still get away with it with either Reggie Jackson or Patrick Beverley. But you're going to have Paul George and you're going to have Kawhi Leonard, who are going to be motivated after flaming out in the second round. I expect them to still be top of the pack. And then easy at number 1, you do have pretty much the winners of the offseason who just won the championship and then they reloaded on steroids, who are 10 to 11 deep. You have the Los Angeles Lakers. LeBron James, Anthony Davis, and again, Anthony Davis is 27, 28 years of age. He's still getting in his prime. He still has a lot to accomplish, let alone be. And LeBron James, after he wins a championship, he balls out that next season. He's got that monkey off his back. The Lakers are 10 deep, now 11 deep due to Talon Horton Tucker. Not much to say about the Lakers. I expect them to come out of the Western Conference, if anything. That's my 1 through 15 playoff standings in the Western Conference. I know usually 1 through 10, it can vary from team to team. It's going to be weird depending on injuries, depending on trades, especially with James Harden, and let alone any other stories. But I'm going to roll what I got right here. Would not be surprised if these are not 100%, of course. But I'm going to end it off there. Let me know what you guys think down below. What is your list? I want to know why, and we'll kick it from there.